Now that we have an equation for our effective demand curve, we want to come back and think about how to solve for the new equilibrium with the tax in place. So as usual, our equilibrium condition is just quantity supplied has to equal quantity demanded. Well, quantity supplied is pretty easy because we haven't shifted that at all. So quantity supplied is just what we originally had here. So on this side, we can just substitute in negative 5,000 plus 10,000 times the price that the producer gets to keep. And we set that equal to quantity demanded. Well, in order to be able to do this, we have to use quantity demanded as a function of the price that the producer gets to keep. But if you recall, that was the whole point of coming up with this shifted demand curve. That this demand curve is in fact a function of the price that the producer gets to keep. So we can just go ahead and plug that in here. So on this side, we can say that this has to equal 44,000 minus 12,000 times the price that the producer gets to keep. Now the numbers don't come out perfectly round. That happens sometimes. We can just go through and solve for the price that the producer gets to keep. So what we see here is that 22,000 times P sub P is equal to 44,000 plus 5,000, which is 49,000. So the price that the producer gets to keep in equilibrium is just equal to 49 over 22. Putting that in decimal, we actually get the same thing that we got when we put the tax on the producer. We say that this is actually equal to $2.23. Okay, so that gives us one of our quantities. We can say when we have a tax, we're interested in three different numbers. We're interested in the equilibrium price that the producer gets to keep. We're interested in the equilibrium price that the consumer pays. And we're interested in the equilibrium quantity. In this case, the price that the consumer pays is easy because we just have the relationship that the price that the consumer pays is equal to the price that the producer gets to keep plus the amount of the tax. So here we could just say that P sub C star is just equal to 49 over 22 plus 50 cents, or 1/2. So playing around with some fractions here, say, well, this is 49 over 22 plus 11 over 22. So 49 plus 11 is 60. So this is equal to 60 over 22, which is, in fact, 30 over 11, which is exactly what we got when we put the tax on the producer. And approximately speaking, this does in fact come out to $2.73, which is just 50 cents more than this price here. Okay, so far so good. So far we're getting the exact same result as we got when we put the tax on the producer. So the last thing we do is we solve for the equilibrium quantity. And we can do that by plugging the price into either the relevant supply or demand equation. So we can say that the quantity, I'll just take this one here, I'll just take the supply one, is equal to negative 5,000 plus 10,000 times this 49 over 22. You can go through and do this on your calculator. This does come out to the same amount that we had before, namely the 17,273 units. So what we can see here is not only qualitatively, but also quantitatively, we get the same result regardless of whether we choose to implement the tax by putting it on producers or putting it on consumers. So the last thing that we want to do is, again, we want to say, where do these numbers fit in our graph over here? Well, this is all pretty straightforward. we said that our original equilibrium quantity was 20,000 units. So this guy here is equal to 20,000. We said our equilibrium quantity with the tax was this 17,273. So that goes here. So we can see that the equilibrium quantity, when we put the tax in place, decreases by almost 3,000 units. We can also talk about the prices. We can say that this original price here was equal to $2.50. The price to the producer, when we have the tax, is our $2.23. And the price to the consumer, sorry, this is getting messy, is equal to this $2.73. So again, we can come back and say that the tax incidence on the consumer is equal to 273 minus 250, or 23 cents. And the tax incidence on the producer is equal to 250 minus 223, or 27 cents. This is exactly the same thing that we got as when we put the tax on producers. So the next thing we're going to do is show how you can analyze this tax situation without explicitly shifting either the supply or the demand curve, because it doesn't actually matter which one you move, and we can come up with a model that's actually simpler than what we see here.